Hello. Hi guys. Happy Monday. Trust that all is well with everyone. I trust that you're able to have a restful, strength renewing, mind renewing, physically renewing weekend. I hope that even if it wasn't Sunday, that it was Saturday. If it wasn't Saturday, it was sometime during the week this week that you had a minute to pause. I know I say it at the beginning of every video that we do, but more and more I'm realizing the importance of refueling your tank. Just as we have gas for cars, you need to mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually recharge, refuel. And sometimes it might come in the form of a conversation with a friend. It might come in the form of going to the beach and just randomly sitting there and letting the water wash you. A drive by a golf course. Listen, it could be anything. As long as it restores your peace, it restores your joy, it restores God's grace and strength to take you through this week coming year. So I hope that you would have done something that would have revived you and caused you to feel as if, let me do this. I'm ready earlier. You may not be totally ready, but at some part in your brain, some part in your heart, some part in your body telling you, girl, don't worry, you can handle it. So I hope you did something to bring you to that point of feeling recharged, renewed, rejuvenated, and ready to go. So this week, I am not sure if I'll break up this video into two or if I'll just do one. Nevertheless, I want to talk about, well, you all know I've been reading more and more. So I was reading and I read through all the details of the tabernacle, all that needed to be done, how detailed, I think I mentioned it before, how detailed God was. I'm still amazed. And then we got to the priests and all that needed to happen to consecrate them, to get them ready, the clothes that they had to wear, all the detail that went into that. God anointed people with the skill and the wisdom to make priest clothes. And so, I just paid attention to that and I said, wait a minute. These Israelites had priests. Jesus is our priest. The responsibility of the Israelites priests was to bring their offering to God, to bring their worship. The Israelites worship to God, to make atonement on behalf of them for whatever sins they would have committed. They had to go before God to present whatever offering that they have, whatever they had as worship, whether it be a calf, a lamb, a goat, 2 pigeons, 2 doves, whatever they had to bring. The priests were responsible for bringing that offering to God, that worship, that presentation, making that atonement on behalf of the Israelites. And then I said to myself, this is not a nice job. Whole day, your work, your sole purpose in life is to serve God. And the duty, the responsibility that you have is to kill, just to be killing animals right through and sprinkling blood all over the place. Like all when I read that, I say, but this is not a nice occupation. It's very messy. Dirty too. And then when you read like some of the things, they had to burn the flesh, take out the intestines. I didn't mean to be graphic, but like reading it, I was like, I don't think I want to do that. Take out the kidney and take out the fat around the thing and burn only the fat. All listen, I was making a grilled cheese sandwich for the children. Them girls are morning for breakfast. And piece of the cheese fall in the fire. I didn't even appreciate the smell of the burnt cheese on the stove. Never mind a cow leg or the intestines. was just thinking, like, this is not the responsibility of the priest. This is not cute. This is not nice, and this is what you're doing. This is all you just to serve, making sacrifice and for people. I brushed through that, and I said, but Jesus is our priest. Jesus is our high priest. And he had to make the ultimate sacrifice. Now the Israelites, they brought the cow, the sheep, the goat, the pigeons, the dove, as I tell you. I said, but Jesus' sacrifice was his own life. His own life. That was the offering. That was the thing that was without blemish and no defect. And God made that sacrifice. And then I remembered Peter that spoke about, we too are a royal priesthood. Well, boy, I said, hold up. You're reading, and two start to add up, and then you start to tell yourself something about this Matson. I don't like this equation. And I said to myself, wait a minute now. We in the mix. So I said, let me start over. So I'm doing it with all you. So in Exodus, so I started with Aaron and his sons. So the first set of priests. So God gave Moses all the instructions as to what he's supposed to do with the tabernacle and everything pertaining to it. And then he came to the priests and their garments and what they're supposed to wear. So he was very detailed as to who, the level of skill they're supposed to have, who should build what in the tabernacle. Real details. Priestly garments now. Exodus chapter 28. From verse 1 it says, have Aaron your brother brought to you from among the Israelites, along with his sons Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, so they may serve me as priests. Make sacred garments for your brother Aaron to give him dignity and honor. Tell all the skilled workers to whom I have given wisdom in such matters that they are to make garments for Aaron and for his consecration, so he may serve me as priest. So God chose Aaron, right? He didn't choose Dan, he didn't choose none of the others. He chose Aaron, nobody else from the tribe. He chose Moses' brother Aaron, and made him priest together with his sons. Verse 20, chapter 29, from verses 1 to 9. Well, bear with me, like I said before, I might break this up into two, I'm not sure. We'll see as we go along. Verse 1 of 29. This is what you have to do to consecrate them, so they may serve me as priests. This is Aaron and his sons. Take a young bull and 2 rams without defect, and from the finest wheat flour make round loaves without yeast, sourdough bread. Thick loaves without yeast and with olive oil mixed in, and thin loaves without yeast and brushed with olive oil. Put them in a basket and present them along with the bull and the 2 rams. Then bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance to the tent of meeting and wash them with water. Take the garments and dress Aaron with the tunic, the robe, the ephod itself, and the breastpiece. Fasten the ephod on him by its skillfully woven waistband. Put the turban on his head. I would like to see that waistband, skillfully woven waistband. Put the turban on his head and attach the sacred emblem to the turban. Take the anointing oil and anoint him by pouring it on his head. Bring his sons and dress them in tunics and fasten caps on them. Then tie sashes on Aaron and his sons. The priesthood is theirs for a lasting ordinance. So I said, right, this is the first set of priests, very detailed. They to wear this, they to do this, waistband, sash, turban, caps, tunics, etc. So I said, all right, this is the first set of priests. I said, and based on their garments and the things that they were wearing, because from how we read here, they were the only ones wearing this particular outfit that was made by skillful individuals. Skillfully woven waistband. I didn't hear that nobody else in the Israelites camp was wearing that. So by the garments they were wearing, the clothes that they had on, everybody knew that they were priests. Let's stay with me. And their role was to serve God, to make sacrifices on behalf of the Israelites. Their role was to offer up worship. That's how the Israelites brought their worship to God at that point in time. To bring their calves, their cows, their sheep, their goat, their doves, their pigeon. They were supposed to bring these things, give it to Aaron and his sons, and they were supposed to offer this up as worship unto God on behalf of the Israelites. When you read the things they had to do, I just find, like I said, I find it was a messy job, and I just find that working not inviting at all. But this is how they worshipped. It was specific. It had to be done how God wanted it, because he was very detailed as to how they're supposed to bring this offering, that offering, incense, different types of offering. He was very specific. And it had to have no defect, no blemish. And like I said, it was very messy. I want to read Leviticus chapter 9. I'm going to show you all how uncute this rule was. So chapter 9 of Leviticus, it says, on the 8th day Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said to Aaron, take a bull calf for your sin offering and a ram for your burnt offering, both without defect, and present them before the Lord. Then say to the Israelites, take a male goat for a sin offering and a calf and a lamb, both a year old and without defect. Without defect. Blemish free, nothing wrong with it, it must be perfect. For a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for a fellowship offering to sacrifice the Lord, together with a grain offering mixed with olive oil, for today the Lord will appear to you. They took the things Moses commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the entire assembly came near and stood before the Lord. Then Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded you to do, so that the glory of the Lord may appear to you. Moses said to Aaron, come to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and the people. Sacrifice the offering that is for the people and make atonement for them, as the Lord has commanded. So Aaron came to the altar and slaughtered the calf as a sin offering for himself. His sons brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar. The rest of the blood he poured out at the base of the altar. On the altar he burned the fat, the kidneys, and the long lobe of the liver from the sin offering. And the Lord commanded Moses, the flesh and the hide he burned up outside the camp. Then he slaughtered the burnt offering. His sons handed him the blood, and he splashed. You telling me some of that thing getting on the fancy clothes, them just get away? And he splashed it against the sides of the altar. They handed him the burnt offering piece by piece. I tell you, not a cute walk, not a cute, comfortable, fancy dancy position, role and function. I don't find. They handed him the burnt offering piece by piece, including the head. This is verse 13 of chapter 9. And he burned them on the altar. He washed the internal organs. Listen. He washed the internal organs and the legs and burned them on top of the burnt offering on the altar. Aaron then brought the offering that was for the people. He took the goat for the people's sin offering and slaughtered it and offered it for the sin offering, as he did with the first one. He brought the burnt offering and offered it in the prescribed way, how God wanted it. He couldn't do it anyhow, how he want, how he feel, in the prescribed way. He also brought the grain offering, took a handful of it and burned it on the altar in addition to the morning's burnt offering. He slaughtered the ox and the ram as the fellowship offering for the people. His sons handed him the blood and he splashed it against the sides of the altar. But the fat portion of the ox and the ram, the fat tail, the layer of the fat, the kidneys and the long lobe of the liver, these they laid on the breast, and then Aaron burned the fat on the altar. Aaron waved the breast and the right thigh before the Lord as a wave offering as Moses commanded. So you just holding piece of a dead cow. You just holding meat and just waving. Only I seeing flies, I seeing it just messy. All my skin, all my hair scratching all kind of thing. Aaron waved the breast and the right thigh before the Lord as a wave offering, as Moses commanded. Then Aaron lifted his hands towards the people and blessed them. You telling me blood and thing and run down here and thing? Oh, Jesus. Then Aaron lifted his hands towards the people and blessed them. And having sacrificed the sin offering, the burnt offering and the fellowship offering, he stepped down, walked down earlier. Moses and Aaron then went into the tent of meeting. When they came out, they blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. So only after everything was carried out as was prescribed, did the glory of the Lord come back. Fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat portions on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted for joy and fell face down. When I'm telling you, dirty, messy, smelly, I could just imagine after I put on my fancy clothes. So, that was the first set of priests. We leaving that messy task now and we heading on to Jesus. I tell you, I'm working my way down to us, and so far it's not looking too good. So in First Peter, somebody could tell me why I didn't mark the page on them so I could understand quickly. So in First Peter, I'm going to find my notes here. First Peter chapter 1, verses 17 to 21 says, "Since you call on a Father who judges each person's work impartially, live out your time as foreigners here in reverent fear." This is us. "For you know that it is not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. He was chosen from the creation of the world, just how Aaron and his sons were chosen. Christ was chosen, just as how they had to bring rams and sheep and cow and dove and pigeon and thing to sacrifice without blemish or defect. Christ was the acceptable sacrifice that had no blemish or no defect, the only sacrifice that was acceptable to God for the atonement of our sins. Just like the Israelites and them had to have an acceptable sacrifice, Christ was the acceptable sacrifice for us. But with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect, he was chosen before the creation of the world, but was revealed in these last times for your sake. Through him you believe in God, who raised him from the dead and glorified him, so your faith and hope are in God." So that is Jesus said. Hebrews chapter 2. We're back to Hebrews. I didn't really present them coming down. So Hebrews chapter 2. Remember, the priests were responsible to bring the Israelites sacrifices, to slaughter them, wave them, pour, splash, and sprinkle, acceptable to God for the atonement of their sins and as their what was acceptable worship on their behalf. Chapter 2 of Hebrews, from verse 16 to 17, it says, "For surely it is not angels he helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason, he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God." Why did God choose Aaron and his sons? To serve him as priests. Jesus, for this reason, he had to be made like them, fully human, that's us, in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people, because he himself suffered when he was tempted. He is able to help those who are being tempted. So Jesus, just like Aaron and his sons, is our high priest, and he came to make atonement with what? And the sacrifice of his blood that was without blemish and without defect. So Lord, stay with me. So we're dealing with the priests and are working our way down to chapter 3 of Hebrews says, "Therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in this heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as how God told Moses to appoint Aaron and his sons as priests. Christ was faithful to the one who appointed him. Just as Moses was faithful in all God's house, Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses, just as the builder of a house has greater honor than the house itself." In Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 to 16, it says, "Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." Jesus was the great high priest, fully human. Chapter 2 of Hebrews says, "For this reason he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he may become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted." Chapter 4 says, "Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses." Why? Because he himself suffered, verse 18 of chapter 2. When he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. So Jesus was chosen by God. His blood was shed for us. He was an acceptable sacrifice because he had no blemish or no defect. And he presented his life as the offering on our behalf for our atonement. Just as how Aaron, the high priest for the Israelites at that point in time, had to present the lambs that had no blemish, no defect. And their blood had to be spilled, sprinkled, and splashed so that the Israelites could have received atonement for their sins. I'm going to us. It's 17 minutes in. Us now. I feel I want to break it up. This is already 18 minutes. So what I want to tell us, Christ didn't do a jokey work on our behalf. He didn't do nothing slapdash or wasn't of the same details, specifications. Because when we read in Leviticus chapter 9, all the things that the priest and them, Aaron and his sons, had to do to make atonement for them, the sacrifice that Christ made with his life, his blood was shed, his flesh was torn, all of those sacrifices Christ made on our behalf, and it was acceptable to God. God chose him, and he came as God, yes, and he was both God and man, and he was fully God and fully man. And so because he was fully man, he is able to help us with our temptations, because he too suffered and was tempted, and he had to become fully God, he had to become fully man to be able to be an acceptable sacrifice on our behalf. I just want to read over verse 17 again of chapter 2 in Hebrews. For this reason he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest, just as Aaron and his sons, in service to God, just as how God chose Aaron and his sons to serve him as priests. Christ had to do the same thing, to serve in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people, just as how they had to make atonement for the sin. Christ was a perfect high priest, because I just showing the parallel of what has come down to us, so that we could experience this relationship with God, this one-on-one relationship with God that we have the opportunity to experience. We don't have to kill no sheep, no goat, no pigeon, no dove, because Christ made a perfect sacrifice once and for all, in service to God, that he might make atonement for the sins of the people, because he himself suffered when he was tempted, and he is able to help those who are being tempted. Chapter 3 says, therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in this heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Christ appointed Aaron and they, just as God appointed them. Just as Moses was faithful in all God's house, Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses. Just as the builder of a house has greater honor, or than the house than the house itself. And then we go over to chapter 4. And chapter 4 says that, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in our time of need. I thank God today for our high priest, who is still interceding on our behalf, still making intercession for us, still on duty for a lasting ordinance. Just as he said to Moses, just as he said to Aaron and his sons, it was for a lasting ordinance. And I thank God that the work that Christ did is a lasting one. It was a final once and for all. He didn't have to do like Aaron and them and continue making this bloody sacrifice, continue making this sacrifice, waving no tie, no piece of tie, and no animal on our behalf. His sacrifice was final. It was more honorable. His priestly position is more honorable than that of Aaron and his sons. His work was final. His work is for a lasting ordinance. He is still priest, still interceding on our behalf, and his sacrifice was the ultimate sacrifice. No other sacrifice had to be made, should be made, needed to be made. And so I just want to end off this part 1 of our high priest. I know what I will call it yet, part 1 of this devotional just to encourage us to know that Christ is still on the throne. He is still our priest, still making intercession for us. And his work was final. So if you have received and placed faith in Jesus Christ and received the gift of salvation, know that it was a final work. There's nothing you could do to make your salvation better, tight, more solid, more profound. There's nothing. It was a final work and it was done well the first time. It's not something that he had to continue repeating doing. He didn't have to die and die over again. And so I thank God for his sacrifice. I thank Jesus I thank God for sending his son to make atonement for us once and for all. And so I just want to encourage us this week that we remember, that we give thanks, that we honor Jesus for his sacrifice. We honor God for sending his son, for his love for us, and making that final atonement for our sins, so that we can have relationship and communion with God, and we can boldly go before the throne of grace. Nobody has to go before God on our behalf. Nobody has to go and make any as a go-between. There's no go-between. We could come boldly before the throne of grace. And so I thank God for that. And I pray that this devotional blesses you and that you give an extra praise, an extra hallelujah, a shout of thanksgiving to God for his priestly work for us. Have a great week, everyone.